Good morning, y'all. How y'all feeling? So we got a few things to talk about today, and today's live is going to be short, but we got a few things on the agenda today, and they're all really linked to the Diddy trial. So let's get into the last two people who took the stand yesterday. So we heard about Deontay Nash. Deontay Nash is Cassie's former stylist. He was testifying he testified for the prosecution 2 days ago, and then yesterday he finished up his testimony being cross-examined by the defense team. And from what people who are in the courtroom are saying is two things. One is that everybody's talking about Deontay Nash's personality. Apparently, he's everyone's favorite witness at this point because his personality showed up, but he also stood 10 toes down 10 toes down to get to on his testimony and supporting Cassie. So what we need to know left about Deontay and his testimony is that he testified essentially that what we all know is that that other men wanted Cassie. And I think the only thing that was more colorful outside of everything he told us before, which was the abuse that he endured with Cassie, the kidnapping, the forcing him to go get Cassie from a hotel, like all of those things we heard. The only thing that he added, which the defense asked him about in cross-examination, was that he attempted to hook Cassie up with other men. So Cassie's a beautiful woman, right? Like we all know and understand that she would probably be somewhat of an interest to other men. But he attested to the fact that he tried to hook her up with Michael B. Jordan and an NFL player, but the defense's goal in that was trying to paint a picture that Cassie had her own free will and she was not being held hostage, right? So they're trying to make it seem like Cassie wasn't being forced to participate in anything or to stick around. Because remember, a part of the trafficking charge is force or coercion. Now, he still made it very clear that Diddy was still forcing her to do things. So I don't think what they wanted to do worked. I actually think it sounds like Deontay was one of the most important witnesses in the trial so far, other than who we're going to talk about in a second, which was Mia. But he stood 10 toes down and he did not waver. And I think that the defense team did a really bad job at, cross-examining him or trying to poke holes in his story. And he wasn't allowing them to. Now, let's talk about Mia. Mia is, as you all know, or I hope you all know, the victims were allowed to remain anonymous. So when they first talked about the trial, they talked about the fact that we would not know who many of the victims were that were testifying because they were granted the ability to remain anonymous outside of Cassie. And the reason that I believe Cassie was so important is because of her name. And she had already filed the lawsuit and it had been settled. So I think that Cassie filing the lawsuit, she did that she played that well. And I think she was working with the prosecution team to do that. She filed the lawsuit, it got settled, and then right after that, they started the criminal investigation into this enterprise. So she was not someone who stayed anonymous, but all the other victims were told that they could remain anonymous. So yesterday, a victim who goes by the name Mia, who is a former assistant of Diddy's, so Mia is the name that they're using for her in trial, they told people in the courtroom that they could not record, that they could not record audio, and that they could not sketch her. Like, this is serious. Like, they told everyone to turn off their phones, everything before she got up there. The way they described her was that she looked like she was a white woman. She was very timid. She had bangs covering her eyes, and she spoke down most of the time and was very timid in her testimony. I guess which goes to show, like, who she is as a person. Now, she made a lot of connections. I'm going to start with what he did to her and what she shared. So she shared that she was R-worded by Diddy on several occasions. She said that this was during her employment. So she was hired, she met with a recruiter. She originally did not know that the recruiter was recruiting her to work for Diddy. She said that she arrived at Diddy's home after meeting with the recruiter for her interview, and he opened the door in his underwear, nothing on but his underwear, and then eventually put clothes on later. So I think that was him grooming her and setting her up to endure whatever it was that he was going to put her through. So he essentially set the stage at the beginning of her employment. So he came to the door in his underwear, blah, blah, blah. So she worked for him, and she said that she was basically getting underpaid and overworked. The first 5 days that she worked for him, she did not sleep. She used Adderall, which she was prescribed for her ADHD, to keep her up the entire time. She did say that she was responsible to be with Diddy. The way Diddy wanted things ran is that he wanted you there and around and working for him 24/7. So she basically was living in his home. She attested to helping set up all of the freak offs, but that's not really the important testimony. So she reports that eventually this led to him R-wording her. So one time he R-worded her or assaulted her in a kitchen on his 40th birthday. She said they were in the kitchen. He asked everyone to leave the kitchen. In the kitchen in one of his penthouses, he started to put his hand up her dress and then eventually began to R-word her. And she said she was frozen because she couldn't believe what was happening. And he didn't ask for consent. Another time was in a bedroom. So she stayed in a room in his house. And in a room in his house, in all of the rooms in his house, he said that they were not allowed to lock doors. Locked doors was not allowed. And she said that one day she woke up to his body on top of her and then him inserting himself inside of her, which is really graphic. And she was scared and did not know what to do, but this was in his home. Another time was on a private jet where she went to the bathroom. He followed her into the bathroom and R-worded her in the bathroom. And another time was in a closet where she was getting his clothes together as she was his assistant. He came in the room and unzipped his pants and put his genitalia inside of her mouth. So this is what was shared in her testimony to the people who were to the jury and the people who were listening. Now, this is important because though this is not sex trafficking, she's alleging that other people knew about it and saw, and that she was being forced to participate. So remember, forced. She was being forced to participate, and it escalated from there. So that was that. She also alleged to the abuse that she witnessed with Cassie, which again is important because they're showing us how Diddy was a monster. So she said that let's talk about the abuse that was done to her. She said she was also assaulted. She said one time she was on the phone texting with other employees. They were making jokes about Diddy's mood going up and down. He tried to snatch her phone. She ran with the phone she was trying to escape him. He snatched the phone, ran with the phone, and she tried to chase him to get it back. He slammed her arm in the door, and she thought it was an accident the first time, and then he did it again. So bad that her arm was hurt. She also said that one time in front of everyone, he pushed her into a pool, and he continued to do things like that to embarrass her over the time of her employment. Now, when they asked her, well, why didn't you go to the police if all of this was happening? She shared that one time she got pulled over on the way to work for a meeting with Diddy. When she got pulled over by the police, she told them she was going to be late for a meeting with her boss. When the police asked who her boss was, she said it was Diddy Combs. And the police officer said, "You're lying, get him on the phone." And then after she got him on the phone, the police officer laughed and essentially was laughing and excited to see Diddy. So she said that she believed that she could not go to any police officers, which we've also heard several times. Between the civil lawsuits and the criminal case, we've heard many people testify to the fact that they felt like the police weren't even able to stop Diddy. So many people allege that they didn't go to the police because the police were working with Diddy and he was such a well-known figure. And honestly, it seems like his reach went so far that the police wouldn't be able to do anything for them. So she said that's why she didn't go to the police. And she said back then there was no social media and no Me Too movement. So there was nobody was doing what they're doing now, which is going to the police and being able to speak out or using social media to gain traction, which is very true. The Me Too movement started later, and there wasn't social media to spread a lot of it by word of mouth. But what we realized is when social media hit, a lot of men in the industry started going down for R-wording and assaulting women because we were able to get the word out there and women were able to speak their piece. So that's why she said she didn't call the police. Now, she also talked about the fact that her job was to take care of Cassie after he brutalized her. So whenever Cassie was beaten down really bad by Diddy, she was responsible for getting her to a surgeon. She was responsible for making sure Cassie was okay. And she went from being his assistant to essentially having to watch Cassie. And she said that her and Cassie had a really tight friendship. She said the same thing that Deontay said, which was that she witnessed him brutalize Cassie many times. so bad so that she had to go to the hospital and there would be blood everywhere. She also alleged that they tried to stop the attacks a few times but weren't able to. And she got slammed against the wall a few times, apparently. Now, one of the craziest stories is where she described a trip that they took to Turks and Caicos, where she alleged that Cassie came running to her room screaming, "Help, Diddy is going to unalive me, I need help." She said that it was a piercing scream and that she was so scared for Cassie that they both went running. Now, I'm not sure if it was this incident or another one, but there was a moment where they were so afraid for their life of Diddy that they went out and got paddles. They were like near a beach, got paddles, and paddled out to shore to get away from Diddy because they were that scared as he was chasing them on the beach. She said that it got so bad that there was a storm, and her and Cassie had to make a decision about whether or not they were going to stay out at shore with the storm coming or go back and face Diddy. And this is to prove how terrified people were of him. Like they're so scared that they're making decisions, life or death decisions, about whether or not they stay in the storm or they paddle back to shore to go and deal with him. So this has been like an ongoing issue for how long? And she clearly painted a picture of both RICO and trafficking, but it honestly, I'm going to break my unbiased because for a lot of this, I'm just reporting based on what is being said in court. I just want to be biased for a moment and say that for the people who are alleging that he's not a monster and for people who are advocating for him, whether or not you believe he's guilty of sex trafficking or you believe he's guilty of the RICO and racketeering, he's a horrible person. He's a horrible person. So anyone advocating for him at any extent, because to me, it's like, even if you don't believe that the racketeering, the RICO, and the trafficking are things that he's going to get charged with, in any way advocating for somebody like this, knowing that the information they're saying is true. And to be clear, Diddy and his team are not denying that these things happen. They're simply denying that he is not guilty of RICO and sex trafficking. But all the other things, he is very clearly, they're saying like he was a bad person, he was a drug-fueled person, he was abusive, he did all these things to people. Like, I don't understand how anyone could advocate for a person like that. So if you are, I have to say that I think you're a soulless monster as well, because only a soulless monster would advocate for someone who has done these kinds of things to people. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say about the Diddy trial is that a few people have been talking about whether or not Diddy is going to take the stand. A lot of people have said that they think it's a bad idea for him to take the stand because it wouldn't really help him. But TMZ keeps interviewing Suge Knight for whatever reason, I don't know. But here's an interview from Suge Knight in TMZ where he talks about whether or not he thinks Diddy should take the stand.
From what you know about Diddy, Puffy, as you call him, Sean Combs, do you think that he will want to testify in his own defense?
He probably was advised not to, but I feel if he do tell his truth, he really would walk. He can humanize his own self, and the jury might give him a shot. But if they keep him sitting down, it's like he's scared to face the music. He should just have his faith in God, put up his hands, and go up there and tell his truth.
Given what you've heard from these witnesses this week, what you've heard about, do you think there's a possibility that Diddy gets acquitted?
Well, one of the things you gotta believe is that I don't feel that the prosecution want him that bad, because a lot of stuff they had on him, they left out. It don't seem like they're really coming that hard at him.
What part?
In the other situation is this. Well, like when they're not taking the steps like actually showing the RICO. They're not actually showing the drugs.
In your mind, they're not connecting the dots. They're not connecting the dots. You think they're focusing more on the violence as opposed to anything else?
I don't think they want to connect the dots.
Really?
You're talking about the FBI. They can connect the dots if they want to. I think that Puffy did a lot of favors for these people over the years. And I'm quite sure they owe Puffy a lot of favors.
So here's the thing. I mean, we're not going to listen to Suge Knight because Suge Knight has been locked up in jail for how long, right? Like he's not a reliable source. I think it's interesting that they keep interviewing him. I do think that, so here's what I will say. I think that he thinks Diddy should take the stand because he's anti-Diddy. He's never going to tell Diddy anything in favor of Diddy. They're not cool, right? So of course he thinks that Diddy should take the stand. I don't think he means any good by Diddy when he says that. So that's my one piece of one thought. The other thing is that where he said that the FBI is not doing a good job at connecting the RICO. I think they are doing a good job at connecting the RICO. I also am not going to listen to Suge Knight for criminal legal advice, but I do think they're doing a good job at connecting the dots on the RICO and the trafficking. And I think that there's still more to come. Remember, we're still early on in the trial, and the folks who have been inside of the trial and have been watching it have consistently said that they believe that the prosecution has really made their case. Like they feel like the case has really been made, and they said that there's rumors that the prosecution said that they may rest their case early, but the defense team is arguing that they still need time because they obviously have to bring people up to try to support Diddy's, whatever his stance is going to be. I don't think Diddy's going to take the stand. I don't think it'll do any good for him. I don't think anyone's going to really want to hear anything he has to say. And to be honest, even his last apology didn't go over well. His apology about the Cassie video didn't go over well. So I can't imagine that people are going to want to hear that. But that's it for today, really. That's the Diddy trials. Those are the updates. I hope y'all have a great weekend. And yeah, get outside. It's supposed to rain, but still, be outside.